Time to choose your hero as Mars and Jupiter come against Saturn. You will feel excitement, childlike enthusiasm, and a variety of opportunities coming in, followed immediately by roadblocks, delays, and restrictions. Will it be extremely frustrating? Yes. Will there be a tremendous opportunity for growth? Absolutely. Let's take a closer look. My name is Anastasia. I'm a traditional Western astrologer specializing in natal, relationship, and predictive readings. If you enjoy my work, please take a few seconds of your time to show your support by leaving a like or a comment, subscribing, pressing the notification bell, watch another one of my videos, send me a happy thought, or say thank you by buying me a coffee, a tea, or a croissant, something I can't live without. I appreciate every single one of you. Before we dive in, if you're looking for a personal reading, you have important questions, you have a birthday coming up, and you want to know what the year ahead has in store for you, book a reading on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. On my website, you can find a variety of candles and oils, notebooks, planners that I create. My skills are far and wide. Gotta compliment myself once in a while, but I really like using astrology to help people. That's why I became an astrologer. It all started with the desire to understand myself, but then in the process, my knowledge, I think, can be useful to all of you, and it has been useful at this point for years. So the same way, I started working with planetary transits to help myself deal with my romantic struggles, and so then it turned into a part of my business. In this video, I'd like to highlight my Jupiter and Taurus candle. This one is perfect for a variety of reasons. We're dealing with difficult Saturnian aspects all throughout August. Jupiter is in the sign of its detriment all the way until June 2025. And there's a lot of tense energy in the air. I have been noticing from talking to clients that there is a lack of optimism. A lot of people are feeling that the world is very complicated, that there's a lot of difficulties right now, that the future is uncertain. And so Jupiter is the planet of growth, optimism, expansion, abundance. This candle captures Jupiter in Taurus, co-present with Venus in Taurus, which is the ruler of Jupiter, so it has that additional support of the ruler being there. Taurus is all about building stability, building abundance, helping with fertility and creativity. So this candle can help you find growth, find optimism, feel more secure, get a sense of purpose, a sense of direction. Additionally, astrologically, I would recommend it to anyone born with their Jupiter in the signs of fall and detriment, which is Capricorn, Gemini, and Virgo. If your Jupiter is in the dark house, 6th, 8th, or 12th, if it's conjunct Saturn, opposite or square Saturn, this could be a really good choice for you. And somehow my voice has decided to go away. So this transit that we're going to talk about, it is active the entire August, right? In broad strokes, you begin to feel it between August 6th, and that is when Jupiter and Saturn get within 3-degree orb from one another, and then they don't separate all the way until September 3rd. So we get a month of Jupiter squaring Saturn. And in this video, I'm also talking about Mars being in the mix, because you can't avoid the square of Jupiter to Saturn without talking about Mars, since this is something that we are in the middle of, right? So the way this works chronologically is on August 14th, Mars comes together with Jupiter at 16 degrees 39 minutes of Gemini. So you will feel it very strongly if you have planets or angles, your ascendant, descendant, midheaven. I see between 13, 19 degrees mutable signs, Gemini, Virgo, Pisces, and Sagittarius, then this is gonna hit you even stronger. We will all feel it. This is very much the red line going through the entirety of August. And then on August 16th, Mars squares Saturn at 17 degrees 41 minutes Gemini. And then on August 19th, the exact square of Jupiter and Saturn happens at 5:45 p.m. Eastern at 17 degrees 28 minutes. So I would even extend it. I would say you'll feel it if you have planets from 13 all the way into 20 degrees mutable signs, Gemini, Pisces, Sag, and Virgo. And this is a pretty rare transit. We've had the great conjunction between Jupiter and Saturn in 2020, I believe. I think it was December 2020. Let's just confirm real fast. Yeah, Jupiter and Saturn came together in 2020 in the very early in Aquarius. So that would have been the start of the Jupiter and Saturn cycle. The conjunction is like a new moon. Jupiter and Saturn come together. You're focusing both on growth, but also practicality. You're thinking about community. You're focusing on the development of better practices, better community, better world around you, right? And then the Jupiter-Saturn square, which is a once in like 8 years transit, is something that is like first quarter moon of Jupiter and Saturn. If we're thinking of the lunar cycle, the new moon is the place where you plant your seed, you set your intention. By the time you get to the quarter moon, you have to deal with tensions. You have to deal with the reality of situation, right? Like you have a vision of a perfect party in your head, and then you go to the store and certain things are missing. Some people cancel, your entertainer can't make it, your dog gets sick, and you have to operate within those restrictions of the real life. So think of Jupiter and Saturn in the same way. Jupiter is the planet of growth, optimism, faith, expansion. Jupiter is the greater benefic. It will always tell you that things will work out. While Saturn is the antithesis, correct me if I'm wrong, it's the opposite of Jupiter on many levels. Saturn is the hard realism of life. Saturn tells you that things will end in death. Things will end in decay. Things will end like in a frustrating way. So when the two come together, it's like a battle of abundant optimism versus realism. And something beautiful can be born in the process. Like I don't necessarily, personally, I don't always like hate squares or oppositions. Like yes, they're more intense because they're difficult aspects, but I'm born with a bunch of squares and oppositions. So I'm like, this is the part of life. You have to have some intensity. Okay, so let's break it down a little bit more. First of all, on August 14th, we have Mars conjoining Jupiter. Mars is the action hero. Jupiter is the sage, the wise sort of guru, right? And this is like on one side you have Mars and Jupiter, on the other side you have Saturn. So Mars and Jupiter is like the soldier is coming into the counselor and says like, I want to start a war. I want to sacrifice these things. I want to commit to something. You have the energy, enthusiasm, excitement, right? And Jupiter is there to support it. Jupiter is like, sure, let's do it all. Let's throw some red blood on the walls. And like, it doesn't have to be as like violent or dramatic, but you feel energized, you feel stronger, you feel more powerful and capable. And so it is a great transit for starting new things. Usually. Saturn gets in the mix immediately. The two conjoin on the 14th, on the 16th, but like I said, you can stretch it out all the way from August 6th until September 3rd, but this is the epicenter. And it all happens like in close succession. 14th, the conjunction of Mars and Jupiter. 16th, Mars squares Saturn. 19th, Jupiter squares Saturn. So between the 16th and 19th, as Mars squares Saturn and Jupiter squares Saturn, you deal with restrictions. Your magical plan faces the roadblock. It hits the wall. It doesn't work out. Something you've envisioned has to contend with reality. Saturn will give you major reality checks. It will bring restrictions in the shape of your health, in the shape of the duties you have to other people. It may create authority figures that are blocking you, literally people saying, no, you're not going to do it. No, we don't need it right now. Nobody cares. So some kind of opposition. Your beliefs in yourself and in other people will be tested. So it's a moment of catharsis on many levels. I think, yeah, it's a crisis point. It's a difficult moment. It's a breaking point for a lot of things, but like a lot of times you need friction in order to grow and transform. So Saturn requires a sacrifice. It requires you to be grounded, practical, be ready for one step forward, two step back sort of direction for your plans and your projects, but keep going. That's what Saturn wants you to, like, it wants you to work through the frustration, it wants you to work through the difficulties, right? If the moon gave up on on the cycle at any point, it would hit the first quarter moon and then it would be like, yeah, I don't want to keep going towards the full moon. But we reach the full moon at some point, we're going to have Saturn and Jupiter opposition. That will be the moment of like completion, culmination. So, you know, first stage of this transit, I think, like, let's say even first half of August, you are feeling maybe energetic, excited, you're going for something. The midpoint is the most frustrating. You feel like giving up, you feel like the world is against you, you don't have enough money, you don't have enough resources, you had a plan to go on a trip, your child gets sick, or you deal with some kind of roadblock. So frustration. Very possible, lots of frustration. Be ready for it, right? Be ready for things to not go the way you want them to go. But then what does Saturn want you to do? It wants you to commit, it wants you to work hard, it wants you to be patient and persevere. And Saturn rewards patience and perseverance. Rewards more than you can even imagine, right? It's not going to help you defeat death. Saturn says nobody is immune to death, right? And that is true. No matter how much money you have, how many resources you have, you can maybe postpone it on some level, but like Saturn will come for you at the end. But it does encourage you to work hard, to be ready to put the time in, to be ready to sacrifice something, and eventually it will pay off, right? This might be the time when you have to step up, when you have to take on more responsibility, when you have to sacrifice some of your personal goals temporarily. It doesn't have to be a personal, like a permanent thing. Focus on, my advice to you at this time would be focus on your spiritual progress, your spiritual growth. Commit to bettering yourself, commit to bettering your health, and be ready for this energy to come back around on December 24th, 2024, and then again in June 2025. If you want to reflect back, last time we had Jupiter squaring Saturn, which would have been the kind of last quarter of the cycle, but still may have presented similar issues, would have been 3 times in 2015 and 2016. The first one is August 3rd, 2015, then March 23rd, 2016, and May 26th, 2016. So if you want to reflect on the period from like July into May 2016 to see what kind of frustrations you may have been dealing with, how you overcame it, and what kind of rewards may have found you, definitely do that. Before we dive into the horoscopes, as always, if you have personal questions, you're like, I have my moon at 17 degrees Gemini. What does this mean? How is this going to affect me? How is this going to hit me? Book a reading on my website. That's the easiest way, because it's hard to answer questions like that in a comment section, but it's much easier to like look at your personal chart to see what things, where they're located, because like nothing exists in a vacuum, right? Like you got to see which houses the moon rules, which aspects she's making, what conditions she's in, etc. So book a reading on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. It's always a good time to look at the year ahead. I can talk about your relationship or your natal chart if you're feeling a little bit lost in life. So let's dive in. If you are the beautiful, courageous, and powerful Aries rising, Mars and Jupiter will come together in your 3rd house and square Saturn in the 12th. And so Mars rules your 1st house of identity and 8th house of other people's resources, debts, spiritual healing work. And Jupiter rules your 9th house of education, growth, and 12th house of, once again, spiritual healing work. So, and the fact that the two are conjoining in the 3rd house makes me wonder if maybe you are expanding your knowledge. You are learning something new, maybe something that has to do with healing, with tarot, astrology, spirituality, Reiki, shamanic type of work. Or even in general, maybe you're learning about money, maybe you're learning about travel, maybe you're thinking of like relocating with Mars ruling the first, Jupiter ruling the ninth. Maybe you're thinking of like changing directions, moving to a brand new place. Somehow Mars and Jupiter might suggest that there are new skills coming into the mix, new relationships, new projects, new opportunities, new ideas, right? Mars in the third is very like fertile in terms of ideas. And then the two run into Saturn. So they can join, you get excited, you're maybe talking to people, starting things, and then they square Saturn, and Saturn is in your 12th house, and it rules your 10th and 11th. So there might be some type of like 12th house is interesting, right? Saturn in the 12th is very spiritual. Saturn likes being in the 12th, actually. Saturn likes dealing, 12th house represents all of these subterranean, complicated, subconscious issues, and Saturn is happy with difficult things, right? So Saturn is like, yes, let's handle it all. So there might be some spiritual blind spots that are holding you back. Even, like you get this idea, but you don't believe in yourself, or you focus on the things that are restricting you. You're focusing on something that is holding you back. Like Saturn in the 12th, it has been in the 12th since March last year. It's calling you to address your blind spots, to get comfortable with the discomfort, right? Like 12th house is the place where things are unpredictable. It's like being lost at sea, and you can fight the waves, or you can try to like get a piece of wood and like swim and trust that the waves will eventually bring you to shore. So the square to Saturn can definitely bring up some subconscious issues, some self-defeating tendencies, things that you may be already aware of because you've been doing work since March last year, or things that you're just discovering. Hidden enemies, things outside of your control, past issues might also be blocking you somehow. Like you're ready to move, but you're in the middle of housing sale, or you're dealing with custody battle or something. So something that's like very much outside of your control, but is very frustrating to you. So learning to, with Saturn in the 12th house, learning to get comfortable with things, learning to figure out ways in which you can ground yourself and tend to yourself. 12th house will encourage you to do yoga, therapy, meditation. Maybe use those healing gifts that you possess, that the things that you're interested in learning, to figure out how to build yourself up and how to get through these times. And maybe there's a chance to, step outside of yourself and focus on healing others. Like maybe you can make the best out of the rather difficult situation. If you're looking for astrological support, Jupiter in Taurus is my candle of choice for August. Together with the moon in Cancer, this is always really great. And if you're looking for more, if you're looking for these candles or specific advice based on your chart, book a reading on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. I do natal chart, predictive, relationship, consultations, and more. If you are a Taurus rising, we have Mars and Jupiter in the second house squaring Saturn in your 11th house. And this could literally be the resources you have, the projects you have, the financial opportunities that you're getting excited about against people in your community. Let's say like Mars rules your 7th house of business, partnerships, relationships, 12th house of spirituality, healing, mental health. And Jupiter rules your 8th house of other people's resources, 11th house of community. So the two come together, and the fact that they're coming together in the second house is a very literal sign of new ideas, new financial opportunities, new side business, or a project that you think will be great and like helpful to the world at large. Maybe you work in finance and you're also figuring out some kind of investment, but something like money related that you're excited about. Or second house also represents your values and things that are of value to you. The square to Saturn in the 11th suggests that there is either some kind of duty you have to your friends, to your community, some kind of obligation that first needs to be attended to. Saturn is in the superior position in the square, in the square, meaning like the dues of Saturn have to be paid before the new beginnings will happen. So if you do have some kind of obligation to your community, some kind of duty to your friends, even honestly some kind of debt you have to a friend that you first have to pay before you start a new business, because the friend is sort of pushing you and is being like, you got to pay me back before you do these things. You may have to deal with some kind of negative energy from friendships or from your allies or people. I feel like I'm missing a word, but like people who are maybe people you look up to, people you would normally ask for help. Like you may be dealing with some kind of adversity, people telling you it's not going to pan out, it's not going to work out. And that could, of course, affect your belief in yourself. It can make you frustrated. But at times you will be encouraged, at times I will encourage you to like keep going anyways and keep working and keep persevering. Don't let a setback affect your view and your goals. But sometimes maybe, Saturn in the 11th, maybe it's a friend or a mentor or a guide who comes in and tells you like it's not quite realistic the way you want to do things. And sometimes you may need to listen to them because maybe they have more experience, and maybe it's not about giving up on the idea, but it's about changing strategy and gathering the opinions, gathering the knowledge before you go at it. Please let me know how it resonates. Have you been noticing with Mars in your second house and Jupiter in the second house what has been happening around your money and values and goals? And if you're looking for more, highly recommend my Jupiter in Taurus candle. You can find it on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. On there, you can also book a personal consultation to ask me specific questions tailored to your unique chart and more kind of specific, basically. If you are a Gemini rising, Mars and Jupiter come together in your first house and square Saturn in the 10th. This one is very, I think, like easy, but it can also be quite complicated. So here you're looking at personal goals, personal will, personal courage, personal projects against the big guy, the big brother, right? And the big brother could be your boss, your existing boss, maybe blocking your personal expression, your parents, let's say you live with your parents, telling you that your dream of becoming a professional photographer is not practical, realistic. It could also be your vision of what the world expects of you or your duties to other people. So Mars and Jupiter in the first house gives you energy, it gives you courage. Mars rules your 6th house of health, work, service, 11th house of hopes and dreams, while Jupiter rules your 7th house of partnerships, 10th house of career. So new dreams that involve new projects, that involve health, that involve work, new professional sort of interests, social media, right, with the 11th house energy being involved too. New partnerships are all might be sort of springing to the ground. There is that fresh new energy, burst of opportunity and excitement that is represented by this transit. And then the square to Saturn in the 10th, ruling your 8th and the 9th, it could be very literal, like the dream you have gets frustrated by the fact that you have a lot of work responsibility, or you have a project due, or you have to keep your job because you have a child. You can't quit it because, then you'd be, you need the money, right? If you have a child depending on you. So like with Saturn in the 10th, it's all about responsibilities you have to other people. And perhaps Saturn is in a superior position in the square. Saturn will take the tax, that will ask for a sacrifice, it will ask for a compromise. So maybe it's about, figuring out how you can stabilize your financial situation and then taking a leap. I think very much opportunities to take it slow, take a step back, address those concerns, take care of the duties, not rush, and then eventually you will figure out how to make things work, right? Because planets will keep moving, knowledge will keep accumulating. Let me know how this resonates, and if you're looking for more, book a reading on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. If you are the lovely Cancer rising, Mars and Jupiter in your 12th house will square Saturn in the 9th. And so Mars rules your 5th and 10th, and Jupiter rules your 6th and 9th. And when the two come together in the 12th house, you are either trying to escape, right, with Jupiter ruling the 9th and Mars ruling the 5th house of pleasure and career. Maybe you're trying to escape, maybe you're trying to get away, you're trying to move to a new location. The ruler of the 5th coming together with the ruler of the 6th and the 9th, there might also be some kind of pleasure involving education, involving spiritual work. Something is changing, right? And the two coming together in your 12th house is like a very subconscious transit. You are seeking spiritual fulfillment, you're seeking healing, you're seeking maybe even a little bit of rest or some kind of opportunity to unplug, to get away, to commit to something that's more soulful, more fulfilling. And then the square to Saturn in the 9th represents that there are duties you have to pay, dues you have to pay, responsibilities you have that involve education. Maybe a teacher expecting you to submit some kind of paper, or you realizing that you have more credits and you thought you were done with education, but you have to take one class to get another 3 credits. Or Saturn in the 9th house can be the legal situation you're involved in, some kind of, delay with the legal matter, or like a judge that is being hard on you. Or Saturn in the 9th, like if we're talking about moving, Saturn in the 9th could be all the paperwork you have to submit, all the documents, all the sort of like sitting down, grinding, filling everything out, consulting lawyers, something that feels very frustrating. But in the long run, if you commit to it, if you work through it, if you take it one step at a time, you can actually figure it out. You can figure it out and you can get yourself to the place you're trying to go. Saturn in the 9th can also be this like feeling that, 9th house is a very philosophical place on many levels. It's the place of your beliefs and your guiding principles. So with Mars and Jupiter in the 12th, and this sort of Jupiter is about to go into your 1st house next year, there is maybe this interest in something new. Maybe there is some sense of like a part of you is dying, right? 12th house is the final house. It's the house of closing cycles. But then the square to Saturn in the 9th, like maybe there can literally be like an elder family member telling you that you're not going to succeed, or a voice in your head. Your beliefs can be very much restricting you, your own self-doubt, right? And so Saturn in the 9th, maybe the square is frustrating, but it's also liberating, because you realize that something you believe, something you tell yourself, and maybe reaffirm is actually holding you back. So the square to Saturn in the 9th could be the time to examine the things you believe, to examine which things are draining you, which beliefs are not serving you, and maybe start taking steps to change them, like affirmations, positive sort of thoughts and things like that can be very helpful at this time. Let me know how this resonates. If you're looking for astrological help, Moon in Cancer is the perfect choice for you guys. You can find this on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. You can also book a reading on there to talk about your natal chart, how these transits affect you, your year to come, or your relationship. If you are a Leo rising, Mars and Jupiter in your 11th house will square Saturn in the 8th. So Mars and Jupiter in the 11th. This suggests that there is some kind of opportunity involving friendships, maybe a joint project, maybe you're starting a podcast with a friend. Mars rules your 4th and the 9th, and Jupiter rules your 5th and the 8th. So maybe joining forces with a classmate, or joining forces with a family member, or just, in general, like committing to something that is either serving the world or brings you pleasure or helps you alleviate some of the stress. Like 11th house is the place of community. It's the place of giving back, doing work that serves other people. It's also the place of hopes and dreams. So Mars coming together with Jupiter can energize you to get more involved with the community, or it can also inspire you to follow new dreams, start a business, start a podcast, start a social media account. Like, this is actually a very like fiery time, a really good time for you guys to go on social media, and it lasts all the way until June 2025, so take advantage. But then the 2 squares Saturn in your 8th house. And Saturn is in the superior overcoming position in the square, meaning Saturn gets the final say. Saturn will require you to take care of duties. Saturn will suggest that there is some kind of financial problem that you first have to handle. That there is maybe some kind of dependency or agreement you have with other people that is holding you back, right? Like, you want to start a podcast with your friend Adam, but you promised your friend Melanie that you're gonna be with her even though she's no longer interested in starting a podcast. So you may have to navigate some of those like challenging dynamics. Saturn in the 8th is about paying debts, but it can also be about dealing with these like uncomfortable truths and uncomfortable conversations. Saturn rules your 6th and 7th, so it's very much like about relationships, about labors of love, and about work that is required at times to separate ourselves from agreements that are not healthy. Saturn in the 8th might also be like, you get this great project, but then there is this long contract, and maybe in the future you have to pay a big part of your income to someone else. So there might be a bit of like a buzzkill in terms of resources you're going to make or agreements you're going to make. Do not rush to like sign any contracts, and remember that Mercury is retrograde, and maybe it's the best time to like take it slow. And yeah, be ready that before you get to that Mount Olympus, you can still get to it. Before you get to it, you'll have to pay off some debts, you'll have to handle some projects, deal with some relationships, and figure out how you can have more freedom in those. If you're looking for additional help, highly recommend my Mercury in Virgo candle, or even Mercury Kazemi in terms of helping you deal with retrograde, helping create more clarity, and maybe like handle financial matters. And if you're looking for more guidance, you can book a reading on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. You can also find all of my candles and oils on there as well. Now let's talk about the lovely Virgo rising. If you are a Virgo rising, Mars and Jupiter are coming together in your 10th house and squaring Saturn in the 7th. So this is interesting, right? Like, we have Mars and Jupiter in the 10th house of career, status, reputation, public life, energizing you, bringing you new opportunities, making you feel enthusiastic. Mars rules your 3rd house of communication and business, 8th house of shared resources, other people's money, healing. Jupiter rules your 4th house of home and family, your 7th house of partnerships. So the opportunities might involve business partnerships. They might involve, 3rd house also deals with communication, short travel, speaking, right? Speaking about things that you feel passionate about, speaking about things that deal with your family, with your community, with your sort of relationship even, right? Like sort of starting a podcast about your marriage. And then the square to Saturn comes and you're like dealing with some kind of roadblock from a relationship, like your spouse is like, no, you're not going to talk about our marriage, or your spouse maybe like is going through something difficult and you're feeling, on some level you might feel like unsure whether you should take that opportunity because you have these duties to your relationship. Saturn in the 7th is definitely very much like about duties to your marriage, duties to your business, duties you have to other people. And for some people it will be marriage. For others it might be about a sibling or a mother, a parent, And so with this square to Saturn in the 7th, and at some point, Venus will also get into the mix in the 1st house. It's on many levels, all the while Mercury is retrograde. There's like it's like a complicated pot of planets in August. But like some of it is, I think, questioning, asking yourself, what are you willing to sacrifice and what should you not sacrifice? Like, yes, maybe you want to get married, but maybe the right person will wait for you to take care of this amazing job opportunity and then get married. Like, so sort of having to deal with these important questions around relationships, around agreements. Similarly, I think to Leo risings, questioning who is truly supportive of you, which kind of relationships are truly supportive, even maybe wondering like where are you blocking yourself because of that Saturn-Venus opposition between the 7th and the 1st, and where can you like believe in yourself a little bit more and allow yourself to shine and be in the spotlight. Take advantage of all of those professional opportunities, but definitely be ready. You know, the square to Saturn definitely suggests that there's going to be delays, there's going to be some roadblocks, there's going to be some taxes you're going to have to pay on the winnings that are coming your way. Let me know how this resonates. If you're looking for more, book a reading on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. We can talk about your natal chart, your year coming up, your relationship, and more. And I highly recommend my Mercury in Virgo candle. There's only 3 of these left at this point, maybe even less by the time this video goes live. So this would be perfect for you. Now let's talk about the beautiful Libra rising. If you are a Libra rising, Mars and Jupiter in your 9th house will square Saturn in the 6th. Mars rules your 2nd house of money, 7th house of partnerships. Jupiter rules your 3rd house of business, 6th house of work. Business, but also communication, writing, siblings, schedule, social media on some level too, because it deals with communication, self-expression. So the two come together in the 9th house, and you get excited about travel, you get excited about teaching, you get excited about writing, some kind of message you want to deliver. Somehow you want to grow your world. You want to grow your life through making more money, through maybe adding a new project, a new opportunity. You know, you want to grow your astrology business and career, and you're like ready on some level to commit to doing the hard work. And then Saturn comes in, and Saturn says that first, before you start this project, you really do have to do the hard work. And maybe you have to be more grounded and more practical. Saturn in the 6th might bring up health matters if you're dealing with any health issues at this time. Saturn in the 6th might suggest that there is obligations you have to your child, to your parents, to your spouse. Maybe they get sick and it's not even about your situation, but it's about theirs. Something like, you know, the very literal example is like you want to go on a trip, your child gets sick and you cannot go. But there's also like square to Saturn in the 6th. I think it could be as mundane as like your workload is already crazy busy and you cannot add another thing to it without saying goodbye to one of the things that are already on your plate. So having to balance, having to sacrifice something, having to let something go might be a possibility here. So you will have to weigh all the things, which you should be good at as a Libra rising. And then as you do it, you may figure out the answer. But just be ready for things to be a little bit frustrating. And if you're looking for additional help, Venus in Libra 2 is the perfect choice for Libra risings because it highlights the planet of rulership. At the time, Venus is in her fall in Virgo, perfect for August, perfect for any Libra rising born with Venus in Virgo, Scorpio, or Aries. You can find this on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. On there, you can also book a reading and talk to me about your life, about your concerns, about your year coming up. Really great if you just had a birthday or have a birthday coming up to look at your solar return chart too. So find me at anastasiadoesastrology.com. If you are the beautiful Scorpio rising, Mars and Jupiter are coming together in your 8th house and they will square Saturn in the 5th. Mars and Jupiter in the 8th. 8th house is the place of other people's resources. It's the place of healing of self and other people. It's the place of partnerships. Mars rules your 1st house of self, your 6th house of work, health, service, and Jupiter rules your 2nd house of money and your 5th house of pleasure. So Mars and Jupiter in the 8th, you and your partner open a joint bank account to save for home, or you hire an employee, or you start a partnership with someone, or you hire a therapist, right? Like some kind of like healing journey, collaboration, partnership, new beginnings in relationships are all represented here. And then the 2 Mars and Jupiter square Saturn in your 5th house, and that could suggest that there is some kind of duties or like heaviness, some like serious questions you have to address around children. So children could be like a very, like very easy one here, because Saturn in the 5th house is like, and children, replace children with like a passion project, right? Because 5th house is children, but your creative projects, your passion projects are also your children. So maybe you're starting a website, maybe you're starting a business, maybe you're actually pregnant, or maybe your child needs attention. Maybe your child is going through some kind of difficult growth period, and that is it's taking your attention away from that partnership that you started, from that relationship development you're working on. Even like your child going through a difficult time might affect your plans you otherwise had for resources you were going to spend on something else, right? The questions around sex and sexuality, maybe you have to have some conversations with your romantic partner. Maybe you have to address like a sense that things have been a little bit heavy and focused on, maybe things haven't felt as spontaneous and exciting, and you may have to talk about that, and like also kind of figure out how you can get closer. And a lot of times getting closer requires having honest conversations. Maybe also wondering what's like Saturn in the 5th can also be a sense that you lack inspiration, that you feel somehow stagnant, and so looking for ways to reignite the spark in your life, in your mind, in your relationship, I think are all highlighted here. But also like Saturn in the 5th says that a lot of times you cannot birth something without first laboring over it, without first going through like birthing pains, right? So Saturn in the 5th says do not avoid them, keep plugging away, keep going, and things will eventually work out. It could also be like, literally you like Mars and Jupiter in the 8th, you start a savings account for your child, and then Saturn in the 5th, you realize that you are not pregnant yet, and you thought you were, but then maybe it was like a fluke and you're not pregnant yet. So something like that. And as always, Saturn is like, no, it's not a no, never gonna happen, but it's more like keep going, keep trying, keep persevering. Let me know how this resonates. Highly recommend my Jupiter in Taurus candle, because this falls in your 7th house, blessing all relationships, partnerships, and connections. And if you're looking for a personal consultation, you want to ask me questions, you can do so on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. If you are a Sagittarius rising, Mars and Jupiter come together in the 7th house, and they square Saturn in the 4th. Mars rules your 5th and 12th, Jupiter rules your 1st and 4th. So this is your chart ruler, Jupiter, in the house of relationships, coming together with Mars, ruler of your house of pleasure. So there is a lot of focus on relationships for Sag risings, right? Mars and Jupiter together in the 7th house. You are ready to date. You are ready to move the relationship forward. You're ready to maybe get pregnant. Mars rules your 5th house. Ready to get married. Maybe it's your partner also who is like moving things ahead, like feeling excited, like some kind of major developments. It could also be about business partnership potentially too. But the square to Saturn in the 4th suggests that there is some kind of like delays, restrictions, limitations you have to address involving family, involving home, property, your living situation, and even possibly even some sort of traumas from the past, right? Your partner wants to move in together. Saturn in the 4th says that you haven't healed everything yet. You are avoiding vulnerability. And then Saturn in the 4th is like, here are your wounds, right? Here is what is wrong, then you need to fix. Saturn in the 4th could represent a family member needing your attention. Maybe you want to move with your partner who lives in a different town, but your grandmother asked you to watch over her house and you said yes, and now you are attached to the place you're at. Maybe you're trying to sell your home and things are taking longer. So Saturn in the 4th will definitely bring up some of those realistic, real-life concerns, and will suggest that you need to persevere, you need to keep going, you need to push through it, right? But do not push too hard. It's okay to take a break. It's okay to take a step back. The dues that Saturn demands of you will have to be paid. Saturn is in the winning position in the square, so first you have to handle your, those blocks from the past, heal childhood wounds, realize how your relationship with your father affects your marriage or affects your relationship with your boyfriend, girlfriend. You'll have to, handle real estate matters. You'll have to deal with family, maybe put up some healthier boundaries. Maybe there is challenges that involve your partner's family too that need to be addressed. So it's definitely the time to be like more realistic. If you're looking for personal guidance, book a reading on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. I'd be happy to look at your natal chart, your year to come, and answer any questions that may arise in the process. If you are a Capricorn rising, Mars and Jupiter in your 6th house will square Saturn in your 3rd. This might feel like your schedule is too overwhelming, like you're just handling way too many things. Like Mars and Jupiter coming together in the 6th house. Mars rules your 4th, 11th, new dreams, new projects involving home renovation. Jupiter rules your 3rd house, your skills, neighbors, logistics, your 12th house of like rest, escape, spirituality. So Mars and Jupiter in the 6th could be a new home renovation project, could be a new dream that involves health and healing and helping other people. Could be maybe even on some level a desire to get away and to have more time, maybe for a healing retreat or something. But Mars and Jupiter in the 6th, Mars is in his joy in the 6th, Jupiter is willing to do the hard work. You're kind of committed to something. You're not afraid to learn about nutrition, to learn about healing, to take on a home renovation project, whatever it might be. Please let me know if something comes to mind when I talk about this. However, Saturn in the 3rd suggests that there are some logistical issues that you have to deal with, that your schedule maybe is already really busy and you have to take something off your schedule. You may have some kind of duties, responsibilities involving siblings, involving family that you need to attend to. Saturn is in the overpowering position in the square, meaning Saturn calls the shots on many levels, and you're a Saturn-ruled person, so you're familiar with Saturn. But there is that sense of like you have to handle some serious matters. You may also even have to have some conversations about things that are not pleasant. Have better boundaries with siblings, discuss things that are difficult, talk about money potentially even. Saturn rules your 2nd house of resources. Declutter your schedule, right? Deal with some kind of logistical situation. If you're building a pool in your house, maybe you need to get a permit or something like that before you get going. And the square comes back around in December and then again next June, so it's an ongoing story. If you're looking for personal guidance, book a reading on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. I'd be happy to discuss what's happening in your life and talk about your relationship, your year to come, and more. Also, highly recommend my Moon in Cancer 2 candle. It's pretty relaxing and very helpful. You guys work a lot. You need to be reminded to chill sometimes. If you are an Aquarius rising, Mars and Jupiter come together in your 5th house, the place of pleasure, the place of children, parenthood, creativity, self-expression, and then they square Saturn in the 2nd. So, the two Mars and Jupiter coming together in the 5th is, of course, exciting. It's like, it could be very fertile. It could be the time you're getting pregnant with a baby or an idea. Mars rules your 3rd house of skills, hobbies, your 10th house of career. Jupiter rules your 2nd house of money, your 11th house of hopes and dreams. So, a new passion project. Even a new romance, like dating a neighbor, dating a colleague, joining forces with someone. Mars and Jupiter in the 5th is also like a new passion, right? For some of you, it might be about becoming rock climber or teaching, being like a hiking guide, going to like, Mount Kilimanjaro or something and helping people hike it, going up, like teaching people. Like it could be Fifth house is very personal, but it could be about love, it could be about children, parenthood, pleasure, even getting excited about becoming a parent, like talking to your significant other and being like, are we doing it? Yes, we're doing it. And then the 2 squares Saturn in the second, and you run into some kind of financial roadblock. Saturn has been in your second house since March last year. You may have been dealing with some kind of financial restrictions, some maybe difficult financial situation. Saturn sometimes clamps your earnings. It could be self-imposed because you got a mortgage and you're paying a mortgage and you don't have as much disposable income, or it could be because you lost your job and you don't have as much money right now. And please share, what has it been for you? But Saturn in the second house squaring that conjunction in the fifth is very much like, hold your horses, do some balancing, consult some financial advisors. Maybe you can't become a rock climber or a guide in Kilimanjaro because you have debts you have to pay, right? Or some kind of like dues you're paying. Maybe it could also literally be like child support that you're paying that is maybe limiting your available finances at this time. So of course, with Saturn in the second, you know, you have to be careful, you have to move slowly, you have to allow for that extra time and know that eventually you will figure it out. And if you keep persevering and you keep solving those problems and moving through financial matters or even having difficult conversations about money and values, eventually you will be left with a better life, more joyful life, and happier relationships. If you're looking for more, book a reading on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. I'd be happy to talk about your natal chart, your year to come, your relationship, or anything else you might want to know about. Now to the lovely, beautiful Pisces risings. Mars and Jupiter come together in your fourth, and then they square Saturn in the first. Mars also rules your house of money, values, your house of beliefs, philosophies, education, travel, writing. And Jupiter rules, of course, you, it's your chart ruler, and your house of career. So the two coming together in the fourth it's interesting, right? Very literally, fourth house represents home, family, and living situation. And you may be thinking of starting a family. You're maybe getting ready to become a parent. You're maybe thinking of moving or expanding your home. Jupiter is very much like growth. Mars could be like, let's knock the wall out. And Jupiter is like, how about 2? Yay! So initially, early in the month, there is like drive and excitement, maybe even like desire to spend more time with family, desire to travel, to see family. You're sort of enthusiastic about it. And then the square to Saturn comes and you realize that you need better boundaries with family, that yes, you got excited about seeing family, but maybe they're draining your life force. It happens, right? If you don't have a family like that, take a moment to celebrate. But Saturn in the first could be like you need better boundaries. Saturn in the first can also remind you that you have certain duties to yourself before you move or before you start a family, before you like renovate your home, right? Or become a parent. There is like Saturn in the first is like you have to take care of your health, you have to address some fears, some even like something where like your schedule, your life is really, really busy right now. And Saturn in the first says, maybe you can't add this one huge thing like a child to the list yet, right? Yet is the key word. So Saturn is in the overpowering position in the square. Saturn will make you address these matters. It will make you sort of handle things. Saturn is like, what duties do you have to yourself before starting a family, before moving in with your significant other, before like, you know, giving your family a bunch of money or something. Like, it's what do you need to take care of? Even honestly, like maybe you need to have some conversations with family. Maybe family members expect you to spend too much and you can't do this right now, or they expect you to go on like huge vacations, or they want you to lend them money or something. So just keep in mind what you have to give and don't give too much. And I know as a Pisces rising, it might be hard for you because you are happy in the position of a giver, but you will need to do some careful balancing. And if you're looking for additional support, Moon in Cancer 2 and Jupiter in Taurus are my choices for you. Look how beautiful they look next to one another. The yellow is so vibrant. And if you want more guidance, book a reading on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. I'd be happy to look at your year to come, your relationship, your chart, and answer any questions. So this transit is a big one, right? Like I said, it takes a whole month of August. It's present, it's with us already. And we may feel frustrated at times. We may feel like we're losing optimism, but you got to remember that Saturn will never teach you a lesson you cannot learn. So be patient, think happy thoughts as much as possible. Don't force them on yourself, but try to think positive thoughts and know that this will pass and you will likely learn something from it and move forward. You will grow up and move up a level. Anyways, I am happy you were here. Thank you for watching. I'll talk to you very soon. Bye now.